could you tell me, since you don't think that MMA is the best form of expression for a young athlete, for a young combat athlete, what would you recommend for a young person who wants to do martial arts and compete in martial arts do? What kind of martial art would you recommend?
Well, of course, I'm going to be biased. I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is fantastic. It's very user-friendly. You can do it well into advanced age. I've seen many guys in their 60s, 70s, 80s. Elliot Gracie was still in his 90s, still getting on the mat. Even his older brother Carlos, who lived almost to 100, I think, he did live to 100, was still getting on the mat in his very, very late stages. It's much easier on your body. It's something you can do for a really, really, really long time. Probably one of the most user-friendly martial arts, builds a very high level of fitness, keeps a lot of mobility into the body. That's not to say that you're still not going to run the risk of injury and get hurt, Also, there's Qigong, there's Tai Chi, which is fabulous, especially, once you get a little bit older. And there's a lot of martial benefit to these type of martial arts. For young guys that are still vigorous and young, I still think wrestling can be a really good sport for young boys. Boys just wrestle naturally anyway, Amateur boxing with the rules are pretty safe, the way they do it nowadays.
Is it?
Well, certainly safer than like the pro ranks, because the rounds are short. They stop for the standing 8 count, like as soon as the guy looks like he's even a little bit of trouble. If the refereeing's good, I don't like any sport where there's punches to the head. But some people, they're going to get into a sport that involves punching no matter what. There are certain types of karate where they will punch to the body and not the head, I don't know much about Taekwondo rules. I don't know what.
What's your opinion about Judo? Because I come from Judo and I'm a little bit biased. So what do you think about Judo?
I've always liked Judo. I trained Judo. My school, Maxercise, was the first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy on the Eastern Seaboard in the United States. I got a very early start. I rented space to the Philadelphia Judo Club. The Philadelphia Judo Club was the oldest martial arts school in the East Coast. Might have been one of the oldest martial arts schools in the United States. It has a very long history, the Philadelphia Judo Club. And I rented space to those guys, and we shared mats together, and we also cross-trained a lot. And we had a lot of Eastern Bloc influence because there was a huge Russian and Chechen and Slavic population in northern Philadelphia. And we were getting people from Romania, Czechoslovakia, Croatia. I don't think we ever had anyone from Serbia, but a lot of Russian guys. They would come in, guys from Georgia, a lot of Ukrainian guys, and they would bring their very interesting judo and sambo styles to the mat. So it was a really nice information exchange at my club, and I learned a lot. So I used to love to train with the judo. I thought it was quite beautiful. But one of the things that I see as a negative with judo, and it's happening in jiu-jitsu too, once it became like a real stylized sport, a lot of the martialness is being lost. Like, it'd be really hard to use modern judo to preserve yourself in a street fight. Not impossible. Especially the old style judo was basically jiu-jitsu. But the modern jiu-jitsu, the modern judo now, it's become so rule-laden and so forth. It certainly would be hard to use it as a self-defense or a way to preserve yourself, there's certain martial aspects to it, but I lost a lot of it. But I see the same thing happening with jiu-jitsu too now. Guys are just like jumping to the guard, right away because they've become specialists in fighting off their back. I'd like to see them do it in a parking lot some dark night against an assailant. They're going to get their ass kicked, man. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of these, once it becomes like a defined sport, a lot of the martialness is lost. I see that as kind of a negative. The old jiu-jitsu, even the sport, was still very, very martial-oriented. And most of the things you could do even in a street fight. The same thing with judo back in the day. Back in Kimura's day, man, that was some pretty good judo.
Yeah, I agree with you about the rule change, which is basically what I don't like about today's judo. I could live with judo being that judo has excluded a lot of the ground fight, and that the whole focus is on the stand-up portion. But you had such beauty in judo because you had combination of wrestling styles in judo, wrestling throws, usually brought from the Eastern Bloc.
Morotogari, man. They used to, originally it was considered barbaric.
Exactly.
And then
Just like the heel hook in BJJ.
Exactly. But now, now it's a 50-50 guard, my God.
Yeah.
But don't get me started on that. But, yeah. But now judo encompasses, like, some really cool stuff, man.
Not anymore. The rules have changed. Now you can't. Yeah. Oh. Yes. Now you cannot grab the legs. Actually, you can, but if the opponent attacks, then you can defend. It's very blurry. Basically, no more leg grabs. No more firemen's. No more nothing. You gotta. How do I call it? You gotta modify the fireman so you don't grab the guy's leg.
Oh my.
You just use the sleeve and the head.
Interesting.
So
is Uranagi still alive?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So you basically, this is what I don't like about judo, because I think that the wrestling style has prevailed in judo, that the Japanese fighters didn't have an answer for the ex-Soviet bloc fighters, which would basically do firemen's, morotegaris, and stuff like this. This is not the only thing they did, but they were very successful. And I'm not sure if this is the sole reason for the rule change, but now we're back to stand up, the classical judo grips most of the time. But the interesting thing is the Eastern Bloc has started to win again, even with the rule change.
Well, those guys, they're hardcore guys, and they train a lot with the technique. They're very technical, and they also are prevailing in freestyle wrestling. In the last Olympics, I think it was 8 out of the 10 weight classes were won by former Soviet republics. It's like, wow, man. They know a thing or two about preparation and technique in those type of grappling sports. I expect soon to see more Eastern Bloc prevailing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Did you know that there's only been 2 people outside of Brazil that have ever won a world championship at the black belt level in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
No.
BJ Penn was one, and Anthony Lovato Jr. was the other. And that's it. There's been some pretty high-level guys, but no one has ever managed to win the worlds outside of Brazil. But I see that changing the next 10 years. Like kids like my son Zach, who grew up in Jiu-Jitsu, he's just right on the edge of that elite.
He's a world champion, right?
In the brown belt division. He has not won worlds as a black belt, but he has won some high-level tournaments. He's still on the edge. One of the problems that I would like to talk about, this is also controversial, in modern BJJ now, steroids are a huge problem. Most of the top guys are taking them, even the younger guys, even blue belt, purple belt level. It's not a secret. I mean, many of the guys actually brag about how much they're taking. For one thing, it's not illegal in Jiu-Jitsu. There's no testing. They have not been banned. As the Olympics, it's Olympic year in London this year. The next Olympics is going to be in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. There was a lot of talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu being a demonstration sport in the Olympics. There's no way that's going to happen until they clean up the drug problem. I think they're reluctant because it's expensive to do drug testing, and you have to, it takes a lot of discipline. One thing I've noticed about Brazilian guys, they're not always the most disciplined guys, and the guys running the IB, what is
International
it?
Federation.
The federation. I think they're reluctant to spend the money because it is expensive. They want to maximize their profits. And but they're going to have to clean it up sooner or later, man. They're going to have to address the situation. It's just really hard to compete against guys that can, taking drugs, and it's obvious who's taking them. Guys are just like jacked up, man. I mean, I've trained all my life in combat sports, as a natural athlete, and I know what kind of physique you can build in that. You know, you can get nice muscularity and have a good physique, but man, the way these guys look, they look like freaking fitness models and bodybuilders. It's like no way that you build that kind of physique, even with supplementary weight training. No possible way.
Yeah, you're right. Many sports suffer from this, and back in the Pride days, there wasn't any drug testing there, and I think many fighters in Pride were on steroids as well.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't illegal back then. They didn't ban it or anything. You know, they were on HGH. I mean, there was a very interesting show on the network called HBO Home Box. Anyway. They had the Wrecking Machine, you know, with, who was it, Mark Lajhner? Yeah, it was very sad. They didn't even go into steroids as much as they did the painkillers and such, but the guy was just a mess. And it's very interesting because a lot of the people that are giving the dietary information and advice are on steroids. They can eat just about anything and lose body fat and be lean. They can mix foods any way they want. Their metabolisms are burning at such tremendous rate. Notice that when Mark Kerr got off the drugs, how fat he got. He was eating the same way he did before. It's just that now the diet didn't work anymore because, you know, he didn't have the steroids to help his metabolism burn off the excess. So, you know, taking dietary information from a steroid user is like crazy, man. But almost every fitness magazine out there, Men's Health, Men's Fitness, certainly the bodybuilding magazines, these guys are all on the roid, man. Even in the MMA world, I mean, it's a well-known fact that guys are taking steroids. They're real good at hiding it. They'll do a cycle. They're really good at beating the tests and so forth. Now some of the guys have actually gotten medical prescriptions to take the stuff.
CRT.
It's like, wow, man, that's like crazy. The only way you can compete with it is to take it. You know, it's frustrating. I really feel sorry the guys that want to, you know, do what's best for their health and to be able to compete drug-free. They're at a big disadvantage because there's no doubt that the drugs work to make you bigger, faster, stronger, help you recuperate much faster. That's the big one, especially in weight class sports where you don't want to gain too much muscular size. You know, you can still keep your weight down, but it does help with your appetite, helps with the weight loss, and helps you recuperate so much faster too. You can do more training with being less fatigued. So it's definitely an advantage. I can't say it's unfair because it's not illegal, but I do feel bad for the guys that don't want to do it. I personally think that they're going to have to ban it at some point if they want it to become an Olympic sport. Either that or just open it up and just let all the sports just, hey, anything goes, boys. You know, everyone's on the level playing field.
Right, I completely agree with you that it should be banned. But on the other hand, people are not born equal. And you have some guys that have hormones. Take, for example, Bas Rutten. He has twice the amount of testosterone a normal human being has. So he's constantly naturally on steroids. And his recuperation from training is much higher than mine, probably. So we're not born equal, so this also can be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, no two people are, you know, everyone has their attributes. Everyone has their negatives. You know, it's one where, you know, it's like these countries that have been, you know, dictatorships forever, and they try to enforce democracy. You know, it's like insane, man, because everyone's not created equal, you know? It's like, you know, they're trying to put democratic values in everything. People aren't equal. They never will be equal. They were never meant to be equal.